Good morning, friends. I hope you are getting the audio. Uh, First of all, I would like to thank All India Agriculture Students Association and Ashish for giving me this opportunity to speak to you on the topic of wheat revolution in India from shortage to surplus. But before going into the details of the discussion with the students of All India Agriculture Students Association and members of the group, एक बात मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जब से आपके ग्रुप में ये सर्कुलेट हुआ है, आई हैव बीन गेटिंग लॉट ऑफ फोन कॉल्स फ्रॉम फार्मर्स एंड आई डू नॉट नो वेदर दे विल बी having access to this program, but they have raised certain queries. I would not like to read out the queries which had been raised by the farmers, but I must assure them that the government of India, in this difficult time of COVID-19, is taking all necessary and appropriate steps to safeguard the interest of the farmers in this country. And you might be aware that the procurement also of the wheat in different states is going on in full swing. Government has also decided to help the farming community and also the people, the citizens of this country who are below the poverty line, with several of the helps by direct money transfer and also giving food at a very nominal rate. So I thank all of you, particularly Aisa, who has also contributed in the cause of the corona pandemic by generating huge sum of money and contributing in PM Care and other funds. Friends, it's my proud privilege to speak to you. Wheat, one of the most important crop of the country. In fact, the second one is the backbone of Indian economy and agriculture. Has been in the limelight the last 4 5 years, since we have achieved more than 100 million tons of wheat production last time, 2018-19, to the tune of 103.2 million tons of wheat. But when we see the journey of the wheat from 6 million tons in 1946-47 to 103 million tons and above in 2018 and 19, several things have happened in between. And probably the students of this age group might not be aware of the history of the wheat revolution, which in fact started as a green revolution 1965 onwards. And therefore this topic may be of quite pertinent to the students uh, for their knowledge. Uh, you are aware that we have achieved a record production, and not only the record production last year, but ever since the last 4 5 years, we had been witnessing record production. And if we compare the production of 2018 and 19, since ECRIP has started in 1965, our area has increased to the tune of 117 million percent. The production has increased to the tune of 733%, and the productivity, of course, also has increased to the tune of 285% since ECRIP has started. Now, Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research is a very prestigious institution, and it has contributed in green revolution and also post green revolution wheat enhancement of production and productivity. And therefore, from time and again, this has been awarded by government of India in different forms. Last year also, our All India Coordinated Research Project has been awarded the Chaudhry Devilal Outstanding All India Coordinated Research Project Award. A year prior to that, the institution was given Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Best Institution Award. And government, in fact, and ICR has recognized the contributions of IIWBR. Friends, the history of Green Revolution started in 1960s, which led to the establishment of modern varieties like Sonalika and Kalyan Sola, which played a very catalytic role in increasing the yielding capacity of the contemporary varieties, in fact, doubling the productivity level of those varieties. And this all started with the import of dwarf statured, input responsive, disease resistant, lodging tolerant wheat, which was imported from Mexico, and it had a dramatic impact within a decade in terms of increase in production and productivity. Now, in the initial phases, 250 tons of Sonora 64 and Larma Rojo 64 were imported for multiplication and distribution to the farmers during the year 1965-66. And the success of the demonstration created more and more demand of these varieties, and therefore the government took a decision to import 18,000 tons of seed from Mexico. And at that time, three of the scientists, namely Dr. S.M. Sikka, Dr. S.P. Kohli, and Dr. U.S. Kang, were sent to Mexico. In 1966-67, these imported seed were distributed to 400,000 hectares, and it was cultivated in 4 lakh hectares area. And in the next year, in fact, it was sown in 3 million hectares in 1967 and 68. And subsequent to that, the identification of amber or white colored varieties like Kalyan Sona, Sonalika, Safed Larma, Choti Larma was done in 1967, and India got the real momentum in terms of wheat production and productivity. Now, it all started with incorporation of a gene which was transgressed into the modern day varieties known as Noran 10, which was a descendant from a Japanese variety, Daruma, which was crossed with the US winter wheat poles, which led to the development of the modern day varieties. These varieties were short in stature, and they were fertilizer responsive and photo insensitive. In fact, the entire green revolution is a story of three genes: the photoperiod insensitivity gene, the dwarfing gene, and the thermotolerant genes, vernalization genes. And the people who were involved in all these activities were well recognized, like Dr. Swaminathan, Dr. Norman Borlaug. But at this moment, I would like to name one of the gentlemen who was scientist in IRI, and who was unsung hero. His name was V.S. Mathur. He never came to limelight, but in fact, he was actually the vehicle for all these developments which led to the Green Revolution at IRI. The significant contribution of Dr. Mathur, the most successful wheat breeder in the years, have been the varieties like Hira, Moti, Janak 2329, HD 2285, Arjun, and several of the varieties which become very, very popular among the farmers. Now, when we see the major technological interventions since the Green Revolution has happened, now during the 1967-68, the Green Revolution vehicle was set on roll with the introduction of high-yielding dwarf-resistant wheat varieties. In 70s, it has led to high-yielding semi-dwarf varieties, which had very wide adaptabilities, and the development of varieties like Sonora 64, Larma Rojo, Sonalika. During the 80s, we had mechanization, and because of this mechanization, the use of tractors, particularly in the state of Haryana and Punjab, there was a very significant boon in the production and productivity. In 90s, scientific packages of practices were released for the farmers, which were region specific, zone specific, and were identified and recommended to the farmers. And then we have seen and witnessed 1990s, where frontline demonstrations took place on a very large scale, which led to the demonstration of newly released crop production and productivity technologies and its management practices. During 1995 onwards, a very significant development took place in Summit with the introduction of 1R translocation, which led to a first mega variety released in India known as PBW 343. This was first mega variety and very, very popular among the farmers. And later on, initially released for the northern plains of the Indo-Gangetic region, and it was extended to the eastern plains also. And in early 2000 century of this beginning of this century, several of the technologies which were new to the farmers, like resource conservation technologies like zero tillage, rotary till, rotavator, were popularized among the wheat producers. And in the last decade, we have seen revolutionary changes happening with the release of mega varieties like 2HD 2967, HD 3086, and also of late, very recently, DBW 187. We have also witnessed release of first biofortified wheat variety WB2, which will play a very important role in the amelioration of malnutrition among the pregnant women and also kids in the country. Now, wheat is a very important crop in terms of agricultural economy of not only India but also globe, and therefore research and developmental activities which are happening in the country and elsewhere play a very important role in sustaining the production and productivity. Now, the Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research was established in Karnal in 1991-92 with the vision of ensuring food security of India by ensuring the production, productivity, and profitability of the wheat and barley farmers on an ecologically and economically sustainable basis, with a mission of sustainable growth of wheat and barley production through research extension initiative supported by infrastructural and policy measures. This is in general the basic vision and mission of the IIWBREs. Now, as you know, the ECRIP was established in 1965 in IRI with the headquarters in IRI, New Delhi. Later on, in 1978, the ECRIP was elevated to the status of Directorate of Wheat Research at IRI, New Delhi. In 1991, this Directorate of Wheat Research was shifted from IRI to Karnal, with two of the regional stations and at Flowerdale, Shimla, and Dalag Maidan being was shifted to the IIWBR or DWR at that time. In 2014, this institute was elevated to a full-fledged institution as Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, and since then working for the benefit of the farming community of the country, particularly the wheat and the barley farmers. We also house the headquarters of All India Coordinated Research Project on wheat and barley, with 29 of the funded centers and more than 150 of the voluntary centers involved in wheat research and development. Friends, you see, when we compare the pre-ECRIP and the post-ECRIP development of in terms of production and productivity of the wheat in this country, we see a significant impact of initiation of the ECRIP in this country, which is evident from the fact that post-ECRIP, the area has increased only to the tune of 120%, but the production has increased to the tune of 725% and the productivity to 275%. So you can very well see the impact of the ECRIP on the increasing the production and productivity of the country. Since then, since the inception of the All India Coordinated Research Project, the ECRIP has released a total of around 500 wheat varieties that involve both the varieties released from state varietal release committees and also the central subcommittee for varietal release. And in barley also, we have all released more than 100 varieties which are serving to the cause of the farmers. There has been a potential increase in the yield potential of the varieties, starting from varieties like C306 and Sonalika, which had a yield potential of 3.6 to 4.5 tons per hectare, to the tune of 7.1 in terms of SD3086. And very recently, we have released one variety, DBW 187, whose genetic potential is 9.9 ton, and an average yield is around 7.8 to 7.9 tons per hectare. You see, when and in terms of the seed production, also the seed replacement rate has also significantly improved. The top 10 varieties had always been the most recently released variety in the country. For example, the most indented varieties have been, the top ones are SD2967, S3086, PBW 723, Raj 4238, PBW 725, HI 8713, so on and so forth. So you see, whenever new varieties are released, it immediately goes into the seed chain, and the varieties are made available to the farming community. The Indian varieties have not only been serving the cause of the farmers in the country, but also elsewhere. And you'll be happy to note that 20 of the varieties have been released in 15 different countries, including 3 in Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sudan, 2 each, Bhutan, Australia, China, Indonesia, Algeria, Myanmar, Ethiopia, Oman, Mongolia, 1 each. So, Indian varieties are not only liked in the country, but also they have been liked and released in several other countries. I begin with the talk today with example of the variety changing the economic status and livelihood of the farmers by naming one of the variety HD29367, which has been a savior of the farmers' livelihood security. Released in 2011 in northwestern plains, and in 2014 in northeastern plains. It has an yield potential of around 7 ton, 6.6 to be precise. The average ton yield is around 5.5 tons, and the approximate area now is around 11 million hectares. And the share in the area is almost to the tune of 35 to 40%. And when we compare the two varieties together, that is SD2967 and SD3086, it amounts to half of the area being cultivated in the country so far. Now, there has been several reasons for the success of these varieties, which has been studied very extensively now. And the breeding for tailor-made plants with optimum trait combination for wider adaptability has been mantra for development of successful varieties. And the HD2967 is one of the examples for that. For example, it has a very high photosynthetic rate. It has optimal stomatal conductance, higher ratio of culm diameter to culm cavity. Several of the physiological parameters which are required for high yield are present in SD2967. And above all these things, it has tolerance to several of the abiotic stresses, like drought or heat. So it is spreading in newer and newer areas every day. Now, with the assumption of Indian population growing, we need to have 140 million tons of wheat by 2050, and we need to work very, very hard to meet out this demand. And we have to produce more per unit area. We, in fact, have to increase area to the tune of 15%, and decrease the area to the tune of 15%, and increase the production and productivity to the tune of 50 to 60%. So these are all the facts which you must be aware now, that the country is facing nowadays. As I said, we need to produce increase the production to the tune of 1.35 million tons per annum. Fortunately, during the last 4 years, we have been increasing the production on an average to the tune of 2 million hectare tons per hectare. So by now we are going very well, but we need to work very, very hard. And there are several of the threats like low relative growth in yield potential. When we compare, other than the varieties which are very popular, the yield potential are not increasing as it was expected. And there are, in fact, several of the biotic stresses, new variances, several of the transboundary diseases emerging now. One of these diseases, like wheat blast, have been mentioned in Dr. Professor A.K. Joshi's lecture. He had delivered a couple of days back. Climate is also changing. We often come to know and listen about the deterioration in the soil health situation, and of course the availability of inputs and their high prices. Of course, the arable area is also going to decrease with the modernization and urbanization. And apart from that, we have several of the opportunities also, like new sources of variability through pre-breeding have to be worked out. We have to manage the gaps. We need to increase the quality is one aspect which I'll be dealing in detail, a little bit more detail, in subsequent part of the discussion. Then we have to go for the modern tools and the techniques like marker assisted breeding, and several of the things like speed breeding, public private partnership, and of course the last but not the least, the international collaboration we need to have for increasing the production and the productivity. Now, you are all aware that our Honorable Prime Minister has given a call of doubling the farmers' income by 2020, and wheat is also playing a very important role in this aspect. And we have proposed a vision documents in which we included omic approaches, the micro approach, and the macro approaches like improved variety, superior variety, climate smart varieties, irrigation, diversification, market value chain, insurance, etc. Then land leasing, land use policy, public private partnership, terms of trade, etc., also need to be modified. And therefore, while doubling the farmers' income, we need to concentrate around the science and technology part. But, plus, we have to give institutional support, and we have also to give policy support, and this will ultimately lead. And I am very, very confident. Often, several of the journalists and also people ask whether how much assurance you have that we will be able to double the income of the farmers. I am pretty confident, that this will be achieved by the time it has been proposed to be achieved. But we have certain other challenges, as I mentioned, and we have to overcome these challenges before achieving the target of doubling of the farmers' income. We have several of the challenges like impact of climate change, and the R&D institution, including the Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, is working round the clock to cope up with the challenge of climate change on agriculture, because we are facing the threat of reduced crop yield. The soils are also becoming less productive, the irrigation, because water is going to become dearer, and therefore, following the call of the Honorable Prime Minister, more crop per drop, we are in a process of developing varieties which are more water use efficient. And also, in case of livestock, increasing the disease and heat stress, fisheries also affected abundance and spawning, and several of the factors, because wheat is one of the components for developing the farmers income. Therefore, I just wanted to give one example of wheat. For example, in terms of changing climate scenario, if there is a change of zero point 0.6 degrees Celsius, that is by the time 2050, if there is a 2-degree change in the mean and maximum minimum temperature, the production is likely to go down to the tune of 10 to 13%. This is one of the important aspect we must consider before going into the research and developmental activities. So our institution is playing a lot of emphasis on developing climate smart, I would say, varieties by validating several of the physiological parameters. We are in fact going for physiological trait-based phenotyping and development of varieties like canopy cooling by way of stomatal conductance, membrane thermostability, fertility of the florets, which is also likely to get affected, needs to be worked out. And we are going for a stay green type of plants with delayed senescence. And we are, in fact, going for characterization of genes, QTLs, transcription factors for abiotic stresses. We are also going for transgenics, use of transgenics like DREB, and several of the events which have been identified globally. And in fact, last but not the least, we are also going for agronomic manipulations, which may play a very vital role in combating the vagaries of the weather, like adapting to RCTs, the resource conservation technologies like zero tillage, for especially with the surface residue distribution, and to avoid burning. In the end, I would like to say here is that precision phenotyping is going to play a very, very vital role for the development of varieties which are suited to abiotic stresses. The last couple of years, we have started new experimentation in sowing wheat. I think 15 to 20 days in advance, because most of the field gets vacated in northern India by the harvest of the rice, and if we utilize varieties which are suited to planting in October, we can increase the production to the tune of, as I mentioned in the case of DBW 187, we want to achieve the yield targets of 8 tons per hectare. And this will be very beneficial to the farmers, because farmers will be getting an additional economic return of 20,000 rupees, and this will serve as a cost to doubling the farmers' income in by 2021 22. We are involving several of the wild relatives of the wheat, like for heat tolerance, for drought tolerance, Colonicum, Longassisum, and you name the wild relatives. We have enough collection. We are also taking help of National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources to incorporate several of the disease resistance and other traits like salt tolerance, powdery mildew tolerance, high tolerating grain weight, high protein content, which has been incorporated through Decacodetes, Sphaerococcum, and baking and pasta qualities from Aegilops tauchai. And we have been giving more emphasis on increasing iron and zinc, which has been increased to Aegilops lutica derivatives, which are now under testing in the field conditions. We are also focusing on increased photosynthesis in wheat, and raising the yield potential of wheat by increasing the photosynthetic efficiency. This is our prime concern nowadays, because we need to increase the efficiency of the plant by exploring the variation in the photosynthesis in Indian wheat genotypes. And this can be done by four pronged approaches: physiological, biochemical, molecular approaches, and also we are looking for an anatomical approach to identify the best genotypes associated with high photosynthetic traits. We also focusing on radiation use efficiency, because when we compare the production and productivity levels of Mexico and that of Punjab in India, the climatic conditions are absolutely similar, but there is a difference of radiation which is being utilized by the plants, because in most part of the Indo-Gangetic plains we have foggy days in winter, which affects, to my mind, the wheat productivity. And we want to develop very efficient plants which can utilize the radiation whatever is available, and you can have a look that during the months of December and January, the radiation is very, very low. The light reaction are very limited, whereas in case of March and April, the radiation is high. So not only we have to divert the additional radiation which we are getting in order to incorporate heat tolerance, but in the conditions of low radiation, we need to produce efficient genotype to possibly increase the yield. And this is one of the important approaches now being followed in India, particularly at our institution and elsewhere, for development of very efficient plant types. So that we can develop a crop canopy with high radiation interception during vegetative growth phases and robust photo production potential during the reproductive phases. And this may perform better with higher yields. So this is one of the aspects which we are now emphasizing nowadays, and our research programs are now reoriented to develop not only radiation use efficient genotypes but also nitrogen use efficient wheat genotypes, because we have identified low uptakers, high uptakers, and we have gone for hybridization of low and high uptakers. We have also developed screening techniques in case of field screening is done, so that we identify to the best possible way the high nitrogen use emission. In that way, not only we will be able to produce more, but we will be also cutting a lot of cost in terms of, because a lot of nitrogen is being wasted because it is not being utilized by, or the plants, in other words, are not being able to utilize the nitrogen which they have been given. So this is one aspect where our institution is giving a lot of emphasis nowadays. The third uh, aspect where we are focusing now is on basic philosophy of producing more crop per drop. And water use efficient wheat genotypes have been identified, and we have been developing the micro irrigation system. The segregating populations are tested in micro irrigation system, wherein we have identified several of the sources like DBW 243, DBW 110, DBW triple two, like so on and so forth, which are very high in water use efficiency, and we are going for hybridization with the low water use efficient plant types and development of a higher kind of water use efficient plant types. So this is one of the key areas where my institution is going to face. Friends, this has been about the abiotic stresses. I would like to focus a little bit on biotic stresses. You know that indeed the rust are the major threat for production and productivity losses, and I'm very happy to tell you that for the last 4 to 5 decades, India has not witnessed any epidemic of these diseases, be it yellow rust or brown rust or black rust. So, in that way, I would like not only to compliment the policy planners but also scientific community. And this has been only because of the international collaboration we had with the CIMIT and other institution, and also focused efforts of our scientists in controlling yellow rust, brown rust, black rust. We had been facing some threats about powdery mildew of late, and canal bunt, because several of the consignments have been uh, rejected because of incidences of very little amount of carnal bunt infection. So we are now shifting, giving full importance to the rust diseases. We have been shifting on carnal bunt, and we are trying to develop varieties which are very high level of tolerance or resistance to carnal bunt. Now, when we say management of wheat trust for sustainable food security, I would like very happily tell you that wheat rust has caused, wheat by developing varieties which are resistant to wheat rust for the last 4 to 5 decades, we have been able to save nearly 10,000 crores of rupees. And this is a great efforts of the scientific community, because they, by preventing the losses in the wheat production, a loss of 25% of the wheat yield per year, we have estimated that we have saved a loss of 10,000 crore rupees. So you can very well assume that had not been the efforts, what kind of losses it would have inflicted on the wheat yields. Now, it has been a very famous saying that rust never sleep, and this has been said by the famous Nobel laureate Dr. Norman Borlaug, and subsequently by several of the scientists. So our preparedness for rust is always on. We have been screening our varieties for UG99 SR31 virulensis, since it is not found in country. Our material is regularly going to Kenya at Joro for screening, and thanks to CIMIT and international collaboration that we had been doing this. And I'm very happy to tell you that most of the varieties which are prone to this UG99 kind of virulence for SR31 for stem rust, our varieties have shown good amount of resistance. However, new virulences and shift of virulence pattern, especially in wheat yellow rust, has been happening for last 3 4 years, and our efforts are on for dedicated centers at Shimla and Mahabaleshwar and also at Wellington are very well prepared. Vigil and identification of new virulences have been done in the initial stages, and source of resistance have been found out. And therefore, anticipatory wheat breeding program and strategic development of wheat varieties have all the time continuing. And we are now going for a newer approach of, instead of going for a vertical resistance, we are going for a durable resistance, or what we call as a adult plant resistance, so that peaceful coexistence of both host and pathogen takes place for a longer time. So this will be much safer approach. Much have been said about wheat blast, particularly by the previous speaker, Dr. Joshi. I'm thankful to him that because of his efforts, Indian varieties have been screened in Bangladesh, and but not only in Bangladesh but also in Bolivia, in a very high security disease screening laboratory in Washington, in United States of America. And uh, it all started with the import of the seed in Bangladesh in 2016, and disease appearing in Bangladesh, and strict monitoring along the Indo-Bangladesh border has been happening since then. A strict quarantine movement of wheat is also done. No permission of wheat movement from east to west season, from Bangladesh to the Bihar and other states. Wheat holiday, as he said, has been declared in Murshidabad, Nadia districts of West Bengal, creating awareness among the farmers and state agriculture personnel have been regularly done. And this is all because of international collaboration that this cleaning is happening. And we have varieties to the tune of 27 as of now. We are still awaiting the results of this year. Probably it is delayed because of the corona incidents, but still we have 27 varieties either released or in pipeline, which have been stated to be resistant to wheat blast, including the most recently released varieties like DBW 187, HD 30843, HPBW 01, DBW 252, and several of them. So, by far, as far as wheat blast is concerned, uh, we are on a very comfortable situation so far. But our efforts will never go slow, and we will regularly be screening in Bangladesh and elsewhere wherever there is a appropriate location made available to us. We will be screening our material and serving the cost to the farmers. Friends, recently you might have heard, students, that there has been attack of fall armyworm in case of maize and several other crops. Last season, in several of the areas in Karnataka, I have also witnessed attack of false armyworm in wheat also. So, since it is a polyphagous in nature, originally a pest of maize, it can eat up more than 80 plant species. So, this is also a very precarious situation, and we have gone for a, IPM module so that we can control, because since it's a polyphagous insect, genetic resistance so far has been eluding, and we are going and looking forward to have some transgenic or any other approach for development of resistance to this. Apart from this, we have been seeing development of aphid biotypes, which can lead to its outbreak and difficulty in its management, and therefore this is also one of the important criteria for development of wheat varieties. Friends, as I said, we have developed a very precise phenotyping facility, because success of any molecular assisted approach depends upon the precision of the phenotyping facility you do, and how precisely you phenotype the plant types and offsprings which have been developed. And therefore, Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, and also I would like to tell you that at Indian Agricultural Research Institute, a very high throughput phenotyping platform has been developed. It is as good as any of the platforms available right now in the globe for temperature stress tolerance, as at the desired crop stages. It is better repeatable. It is giving better repeatable results, You can not only phenotype for heat but also for drought and several of the other abiotic stresses, and this will serve in a good cause for development of varieties which are showing tolerance to abiotic stresses. Friends, our molecular biology group has developed a software developed for varietal identification. This is a very important development I would like to tell you, and this paper has been published in Scientific Report Nature. This software called as Vista, the variety identification system for Triticum aestivum in wheat, is based on 54 SNPs, which has been filtered from 35,000 SNPs, and enable variety identification by molecular approaches, supplementing DUS test. So I would like to tell you here that whenever it becomes very difficult on the basis of DUS to identify between two very closely related varieties, then this software can be of great help. And this has been in the stage of commercialization, and we surely be going for commercialization. Several of the organizations like National Seed Corporation and others have approached us, and we are looking forward to delivering this to them. You know that wheat genome sequence information has been made available, friends, to global wheat research and development community, and this has been utilized in development of wheat varieties. For example, we get a lot of information on land races, genetic stocks, elite lines. We have been also doing high throughput genotyping, utilizing this information and revisiting our genetic resources once this information has already been made available. Because as you listened last night when Dr. N.K. Singh was telling, this information can be of very vital importance in development of varieties utilizing database of highest number of SSR markers and SNPs. And our group is also developing comprehensive database through this information, and we'll definitely be coming out with better plant type in coming time. We have also been a leading and pioneer group in publishing the Karnal Bund genotype sequence, which has been published worldwide for the first time. A total of 366 and 470 scaffolds. Genome size has been worked out, and has been put on a website on NCBI. Any of you are interested, you can go through it to take example of this for development of varieties for resistance to canal bud. As I told you in during the discussion that we had been utilizing the modern tools for development of varieties which are more suited to abiotic biotic stresses, and we had been doing and we have started genome editing involving CRISPR-Cas technology for improving the plant types, plant varieties, and we have identified several of the sequences for mildew resistance and several other traits like drought tolerance, and which we will be utilizing. One thing I would like to tell you that the entire presentation I will make available to you on the platform of All India Agriculture Students Association, and you will be glad to know that our group is very open to informations which have been generated through our research and development. And any of you want to go for a in-depth study, you can always go for studying these material, which is also displayed on our website. Recently, friends, on the initiative of our Honorable Director General and Secretary there, we had a very fruitful brainstorming session in Indore during August last year for on the topic of speed breeding applications in different crop plants in general and also in particular in wheat. And it was discussed at length, and Professor Lee Hickey from University of Adelaide also participated. Rajiv Vashne from ICRISAT came, and several of the eminent and key personalities working in the field of crop improvement of Several crops, leaders of crop improvement groups participated, and it was decided that initial phases ICR would like to invest on speed breeding activities, be it among one of the pioneering group which will be implementing this. It has several of the advantages like reduction of generation time, disease resistance, high height, flowering time, grain dormancy can properly be characterized in the speed breeding conditions. So, if facilities are made available, we can always look forward to go for a speed building program. And should there be any need, definitely the government of India will be investing on this. The last point I would like to touch about is wheat quality. Friends, there has been a lot of talk about the inferiority or superiority of wheat, Indian wheat quality vis-a-vis Australian wheat, the Russian wheat or the Canadian wheat. I'm very happy to tell you, because on the basis of our analysis of the data of the last 30 years, we have found out that there has been a significant improvement in bread wheat and chapati quality and soft wheat varieties in the country. And wheat based baking industry is very growing industry in the country, and India is in a good position to give varieties suited for different requirements like bread or biscuit. For example, we have developed very soft varieties like DBW 168, utilizing resources of Nepal, the original Indian land race, and Dr. N.K. Singh has been working since long. And also another aspect is micronutrient bioavailability. We have developed a population by subjecting to the radiation and mutagenesis of the PBW 502, and we have developed low phytic acid and high phytase mutant lines in the background of this variety PBW 502. The high phytase and low phytic acid mutants were utilized in mixing crosses with the high yielding varieties, and molecular studies are now being conducted to identify the site of mutations and development of molecular marker. But one thing I would like to tell you here is that by the development of these lines, uh, we will be very much possible to increase the bioavailability of zinc to the tune of 22% from approximately around 6 to 8%. So this will be a great help in ameliorating the malnutrition in children and also in pregnant women. Another significant happening which has happened is that we can not only go for biofortification, but we can also go for a very simple agronomic biofortification by a foliar spray of iron and zinc on the, and it significantly increases the grain zinc content, and it is highly economical. Every farmer can go for this. And they will be able to, should there be in future any procurement on the basis of micronutrient, protein, and other quality parameters, I think they are going to get premium pricing out of this. At this point, I would like to tell you that we have for the first time developed durum wheat variety DBW 47, which is first durum variety in India with exceptionally high yellow pigment content and excellent end product quality. And this has been recommended for commercial cultivation in central and peninsular India, which is a major area for durum cultivation, which is also known as Malwa region. Now, in resource conservation technologies, we had been listening a lot about the various technologies, and then later on development of happy seed drill and the disadvantages of happy seed drills. And now our institution has standardized various input management system under conservation agriculture, and we have also developed a new seed drill which is based on rotary disc system, and it can operate 24 by 7. It is much more superior than that of the happy seed drill, and it is in the testing phase in the farmers field, and next year probably we will be able to I mean, give it to farmers for commercial cultivation. It is not only good for rice wheat crop rotation, but it is also very successful in sugarcane wheat rotation, and wheat can be sown as late as 28th of January to get a yield of 30 quintals per hectare, and therefore this can be of great help to uh, uh, farming community. Friends, I would like in the end like to thank the council, the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, uh, uh, and also the Secretary there and DGICR for giving all-out support to our institution, Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, and ECRIP for increasing the production and productivity. I'm also very happy to tell you that Government of India, recognizing the significant R&D contributions made by the Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, has decided to release a commemorative postage stamp to mark the yield level crossing of 100 tons. Unfortunately, it is now being held up because of the corona pandemic, but I think at the most appropriate time when things will become normal, I think it will be released by at an appropriate forum. I also take this opportunity to thank the CG institutions like CIMIT and ICADA, and also our links with USDA, ACIR, and several of the international organizations who have helped in development of varieties which have increased the production and productivity of wheat and barley in this country. In the last, I would like to tell you, in coming times, we have also set right the future directions on which IIWBR and the wheat R&D in this country will be working, and this will be probably on the track of digitization of wheat breeding program, breeding for high yield potential, breaking the yield barrier, and of course, pre-breeding will be important component. And we have not yet shelved the hybrid wheat program, although we had not been able to getting the amount of success which we desired. But I think one day we'll surely be getting this success. With this hope, I would like to thank Ashish, also the All India Agricultural Students Association, for giving this platform for me to discuss with you. One thing I would like to tell you, and I forgot to tell, that I would like to thank Ashish and also Aisa once again, because they had chosen me for one award of Aisa, which is most coveted award, leadership award. Unfortunately, I could not attend that function in Raipur, but definitely they might be thinking to hold some program as soon as things gets normalized. Congratulations to all of you, because you have come in support of the farming community of this country. And one thing is proven in this pandemic crisis is that the backbone of Indian economy is always lies in Indian agriculture, and this is a very satisfying experience. I would like to say that Indian Wheat Program, with its strong multidisciplinary team, along with the synergy between research, development, and extension agencies, can achieve the projected demand, leading to the national food and nutritional security. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Hind. Thank you, Rashish.